Hackmania.com, promo code WATP. We're going to be in Las Vegas May 9th through 11th. I'll be there May 8th. Come down a day early. Hang out with us. We're going to have a blast. Live podcasts. Maybe Nick or Cater will be there. We don't know. But come down. Check out Hackmania.com for more information.
Who are these podcasts? WATP.
A show hosted by Dan Caper. And the guest was none other than Tom Myers. And let's talk about the show format of Dan Has Jokes.
I am Dan Caper. Every week I sit down with another comedian and we talk about the science of joke writing, and we will tell stories about comedy or whatever, and later we will actually work on some new material together. We'll see how it goes, better or worse. It's usually a mixed bag. It's always fun. I
am happy to say we will see how this goes because near the end of this episode, Dan goes, okay, I've been working on this joke and it's not working at the open mics that I'm going to, and he asked Tom for help crafting the punchline. So that's a little teaser. You're going to want to stick around.
Wow, we get insight into the process.
Yes. and you know that Tom's going to come up with something like that because this guy is a joke machine. It's a joke writing machine. He can't help himself. He trips. He falls into a joke.
He's also a thesaurus.
Yes. It's going to be fantastic. So it turns out, this is 2019 when this interview happened. And this guy, Dan, was just in San Francisco for a sketch comedy convention or something like that.
Was it Sketchfest?
Sketchfest, maybe? Have you been to Sketchfest before, Adam?
Yeah, I have.
You seem like a Sketchfest.
That's the one. Every major person in comedy makes an appearance there.
Okay.
And I also did at some point. But it's a really incredible lineup. Like legends will perform there. And it's music, and it's comedy, and it's stand-up, and it's actually, if that's the one, it's very, very cool.
Okay, it might not be the one. Because Dan talks about being here, and I guess he's from the Baltimore area, and so is Tom. And so this came up.
I was in San Francisco last weekend for Sketchfest.
Oh, it is Sketchfest.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this guy's going to the Cool Kids Club, apparently.
Look it up. It's a great lineup. That's all I'm saying. If you like comedy, it's a good place to be.
One of the shows I was hosting a sketch comedy show, and so I was like meeting the different troops before the show started, and one guy was talking to me, and he's like, "Where are you from?" I'm like, "I'm from Baltimore," and he immediately goes, "Oh, do you know Tom Myers?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." So it was like I was like kind of blown away. So like you have I guess you
and me both, because I've never been to San Francisco.
I love this. I love this mentality. Well, you went to San Francisco for a thing and a guy there knew me? I've never even been to San Francisco. How is that possible? Well, because of the internet, Tom. Remember when Come Town made fun of you and they were a very popular show on the internet? That's why people know who you are. But in Tom's mind, he even goes on to say, I remember we did a show north of Sacramento that one time, but never been to San Francisco. And Dan even goes, well, yeah, I'm not from San Francisco, neither was this guy. We're all there for Sketchfest. You know, it has nothing to do with where we were at the time. The guy knew who you were and knew you're from Baltimore.
I'm still hung up on his first sentence and his use of the word troops. That just makes me feel awful. Troops, comedy troops.
That's not what you insiders say?
I'm not in one, so I wouldn't know, but it feels like crafting jokes to me. It feels unnecessarily
Oh, God. They get
pretentious.
into the science of joke writing on this show and crafting jokes. It's all the douchiest things that real comedians would never say.
Mm-hmm. Because they're busy being funny.
Right. They're not sitting there going, what's the science behind this my mom's a transvestite joke? Let's think about this. What really is the formula to make this work?
It's always interesting when you try and teach something to someone that other people just do naturally and can't explain. And there'll always be that divide.
Yeah, there's like people who take stand-up classes. Rarely, because I've gone to some of those shows where it's like, okay, after the 8 weeks of lessons, now we're going to put out a showcase for you. And it's like, whoa, this does not reflect well on the teacher. But not necessarily that it's the teacher's fault. You can't teach being funny. You could teach basic joke structure and how to put together a bit or something, but it's very
like teaching someone how to be short.
Yeah, that just takes time.
Mm-hmm.
You just shrink over
8
time.
Weeks and a lot of money.
Like John has.
Oh, that's true.
So Tom starts telling this story about this talent show because he asked, like, how did you get started in comedy? And of course, Tom was in theater in high school. He's like, I've been on a stage for over 20 years, performing on a stage, he calls it. It's like, well, it's theater in high school. Relax there. Your parents feel obligated. But he goes on to talk about, and then he started doing, when he went to college, started doing sketch comedy and stand-up, and there was a talent show. Now, in my experience, when I was younger, a talent show is like you sign up and then you're on the show. But no, Tom had to audition for this talent show.
Okay.
And of all the people who auditioned, I think I was the only one who didn't make it on.
Okay.
I was the only one who didn't make it on the talent show.
I appreciate him sharing that with the class, but that is embarrassing right there. He didn't make the audition to be on the talent show. All right.
They could have not had auditions at all.
They
if
usually
he wasn't
don't.
there. Yeah. If he wasn't,
Right.
this was just to remove him from this, and they didn't know how to do it. Instead of just everybody normally passes, how do we get rid of him? That's how.
Yeah. The guy comes up with the guitar, play one note, boom, okay, you're in. Yeah. Tom comes up, you're a comedian, tell one joke. No.
Sorry, we already have a Tom.
we're good on that. So then there's questions about like what his influences are, and Tom goes into like, Tom's an old soul, as you know. He goes into Charlie Chaplin, W.C. Fields. I swear to God, these are the names that he's throwing out there. So then the question is like, can you describe what your style of comedy is? And I was fascinated by this answer. I'm like, yeah, Tom, what is your style of comedy? I'm curious.
How do you describe your own comedic style?
That's tough for me to do because, I mean, it's obviously stuff that I think is funny. Obviously, stupid answer, but to me, the stuff is like I mentioned earlier, like the less is more theory with Chaplin. To me, I've been working on a lot of one-liners recently because I did the sort of the rookie mistake when I first started, where you do like the really long bits that take 2 or 3 minutes to do, and then
when you started, you say he's gotten away from doing the long bits that take 2 or 3 minutes to go. Now it's just one line. Okay, that's an insight. Interesting. Remember, this is 6 years ago that he's saying all this. Okay,
and when you recognize that. The actual long bits that work out well have punchlines every X number of seconds, and so when you look at how those jokes are structured, you learn that it's not so much one long joke, but a series of small jokes that make up the bit.
A chunk.
So I sort of construct my act based on that, where I just try and fit in as many punchlines as possible, as opposed to just a setup and punchline that takes, it used to take like a minute to do. Now I've just become a little wiser, and I've cut that down to like 25, 30 seconds. Okay. Ideally, they should be quicker. They say you're supposed to get a laugh every 15 seconds or something. I don't know who came up with that bullshit, but I just don't.
Audiences nationwide.
I just don't have the energy to do that.
Could you imagine? He goes, I just do one-liners now, like 25 to 30 seconds. That's not a one-liner, Tom.
No.
Not even close to it. So his description of what his style is was very much, it's punchy, less is more, one-liners. It took him 1 minute and 43 seconds.
Right.
It tells you everything you need to know right there. He doesn't even understand how to get to the fucking point.
I had no idea how he was going to answer that, and yet I'm not surprised one iota.
So when I was clipping the show, Peek Behind the Curtains, I'll usually listen to a thing, and then I'll be like, oh, that's interesting, and I'll go back and find it. As soon as the guy asked that question, I'm like, I'm clipping this. I couldn't wait to hear how Tom answered that, and I was blown away. Like, wow, it took you 2 minutes to explain that you've learned to use less words.
Within that, he took 30 seconds to say less is more and said nothing in those 30 seconds. It was just words. And he never answered the question, compared himself to Chaplin, and then gave us a in-time example of the opposite for us to enjoy.
Also, as a stand-up comic, can you compare yourself to Chaplin? Did Chaplin do a lot of stand-up in his day? I don't remember him.
No, I don't remember his one-liners and his stories and his monologues, no.
I don't remember a lot of his jokes, if I'm being honest with you. All right, so Now, this is a time when Tom is promoting his new album, Make America Innate Again. And that's his current album that's out. And there's questions about, will you create another album? And he's not sure because he has a new outlet at this time.
What I do is I write jokes now, and I perform on a politics-based podcast. It's called Politipod, and so I do that. So it's not as if I'm doing nothing. I'm writing sketches and doing one-liners and performing them. So that's going to be what I'll do for now. So as long as I have that as a creative outlet, it's almost like I don't really need to go out and perform.
Okay.
He's already past it. He's like Steve Martin. He's just like, listen, I conquered stand-up. What's the next thing? Political podcast? All right. I'll dominate that.
Lose my virginity, maybe.
So I like that he's got a creative outlet. He doesn't feel like he needs to record another album. He's writing jokes all the time. He's recording them. They're getting out to the people. They're getting out to who are these podcasts. So then he claims this Make America Innate Again. He claims he wanted to make his show look like it's a pro-Trump show. And so if you ever seen the album cover and stuff, it looks very much like a Trump thing, Make America Great Again. And I really appreciate that it was asked, what does innate mean? Because I've always wondered this. Like, what do you think innate means? And Tom actually answers the question. I remember the first time Shuli had Tom on, maybe the only time Shuli had Tom on. Shuli goes, you have any questions for Tom? I said, yeah, ask him what he thinks innate means. He never did ask him. So this is the answer to that.
So the title Innate, I often look at it as Make America Great Again, is sort of, looking to what's going on around you and, just sort of using that as sort of external stimuli to go ahead and, make things better. Whereas Make America Innate Again means sort of using it inside yourself to using what you have to bring about change. So I feel kind of like that's what I do,
right?
In a little bit with my stand-up.
That makes sense to you, Adam?
Nope.
I feel like he came up with the name not knowing what it meant, and now he's like going, oh, yeah, no, I meant to do this. It's about, like finding what's great about America inside of all of us.
Did I say enough where we can move on to the next question?
Yeah, is that good enough for you?
Again, not exercising his less is more philosophy.
No, definitely not. It's got to be punchier than that if you're going to describe the name of your album. Well, it all goes back to my childhood. You see, my mom used to say, let's find out the joke writing process. I'm never interested in this unless it's Tom Myers. Then I'm like, yeah, what is this process that brings us such classics as Bong Hit Transplant?
What I do is I'm always observing things. I'm always looking at things. So it's pretty much anything that offends, my way of thinking. I've always taken a different tact to thinking about things. I mean, I guess all comics do that. That's why they go up and say things and
Yeah, also not just comics, like people also look and see and think. It is
Observe,
not
yeah.
unique to you, and observe, yeah.
Yeah, and maybe have an analysis of it or a point of view. Tom goes, all right, so my process is a little different. What I do is I observe things around me. And, comics, what they'll do is then they'll go up on stage and they'll say stuff. Yep, you have to explain stand-up to us. We do that. It's not what the point of this show is. But, all right, that didn't tell me a lot. Again, I'm not learning a lot about Tom through his answers. He's very wordy.
But somehow, he's very wordy, and somehow he always comes off like a hero or a legend. Like he's always, yeah.
We're getting there, Adam. No. Oh, boy. This gets crazy in a second. But let's talk about who is Tom targeting with his jokes? I thought this was interesting.
My family will be targets. Even my cat has been a target at some points.
We all know his cat has gotten roasted by Tom before. I wouldn't want to be that guy's cat. Holy shit, I'd be licking your wounds after some of the jokes he tells about that cat. Can you imagine he's on being interviewed? Like, what kind of subject matter are you talking about? My family's crazy. Like, a lot of comics do that. My cat. Ooh, that's a red flag.
Yeah, that dropped off.
Yes.
Airline
good.
food.
All right, now I'm back. Airline food. Yeah, what do you think? They don't serve peanuts anymore. You notice that?
I get the feeling he doesn't have a lot of meaningful relationships with people.
You think?
Just putting that.
Yeah.
What gave it away?
From family to cat. And by family, he means his parents. He even talks about, I didn't pull this clip, but he goes, it's comedy. It doesn't have to be the truth. Like I tell this joke about this funeral plot my parents got me for my birthday. That didn't happen. Fooled me, Tom.
I'm signing up for his class.
I thought it was an autobiography, your stand-up set. I didn't realize you could just tell jokes. Okay. So then the question comes up about hecklers. How do you deal with hecklers? This answer surprised me. I'll be honest with you.
I think it's, once I start and the kind of material that I get into, people generally think, wow, this is a person who is probably so batshit crazy. Like I could suffer post-traumatic stress disorder if I go after this guy or something like that. I don't know. See, to me, hecklers really done. I've never really had that much of an issue with hecklers.
There's no hecklers at a Tom Myers show. They know better. They know they're going to get crushed if they even try to heckle this guy.
Every clip I hear of his stand-up, it seems like everyone's having a conversation at their table.
Yeah, how can they heckle him? They're not even paying attention.
Exactly.
Oh, you're still here.
And it's always the wild lunatics that are like, I'm fine. And the very sober, dry, straight people that are like, I am crazy. You would not want to get inside.
Yeah.
of this.
Oh my gosh, you guys! If you spend a day with me, it's brushing the cat, and then it's watching YouTube and looking at Twitter.
Yeah, and I'm not just looking; I'm also thinking. I'm looking
I'm
and
observing.
I'm thinking. Sometimes I'm observing.
You wouldn't even forget about it. You wouldn't last a day. So then we start talking about like different comebacks you could have if a person were to heckle you. Like, let's say there's a guy who's heckling you and he's got a bunch of tattoos. What would Tom do with that?
Or if I see I came up with this one where if I see someone who's heavily tattooed or something, I say something along the lines of, "That's a lot of tattoos you have there. It's a very extensive tattoo collection you have. What was the inspiration for that? Your last CVS receipt?"
Okay.
Or something along those lines.
Gotcha.
I love that Dan no-sells it. Okay. What was your inspiration? A CVS receipt? Yeah, that's your line? Okay. And Tom's like, or something else, or something funnier. I don't know. It could be a lot of things, I suppose.
I'm not giving you all my secrets.
But the no-selling of that, I was like, good on you, Dan. Turns out, no, the reason is that Dan's a fucking retard.
I don't want to sound like an idiot, but the CVS receipt thing, what was the connection there with the tattoos? Like, was the inspiration, was the CVS receipt?
Because when you get a CVS receipt, it's almost as if you're reading the Dead Sea Scrolls, because you have the items, they give you a whole bunch of coupons.
Gotcha. So it's just like on never ending.
There it is. Yep, you got it, Dan. This really getting into the science of joke writing right here. I thought for sure he's just like, fuck you, that's a hack joke. Nope, he's like, I don't get it. All right. So then they get into talking about roasts. And Tom talks about how, well, roasts are pretty easy, writing roast jokes, because you can just go back and do kind of hack stuff and people love it.
It's like roasts are really the only place you can use like kind of joke book jokes. Like I could say something like, when Dan was in high school, his father came into his room and said, "Son, if you do that, you're going to go blind." And I said, "I'm over here, Dad."
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's not a roast joke. That would not work in a roast, Tom. Don't do that at a roast. Yeah, your dad caught you jerking off so much, he's like, you're going to go blind. But then it turns out your dad jerks off too much, huh?
It's better than the CVS receipt.
Well, because he didn't write it. He even said it's from a joke book.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right, this is where things take a turn. Because Dan is a little starstruck. This is a bigger celebrity than he's used to having on his show. Dan Has Jokes. And so he wants to analyze what it's like to be a celebrity.
I was going to say, you seem to have a pretty large following online. And I was going to say, how has that affected your life in comedy?
I don't really think it has. I mean, I've always considered myself the same person.
That's good. I like that all this fame has not affected Tom. It hasn't gone to his head. He's still just the guy that he always was. Now, am I a guy that's recognized all over the world? Of course. Am I signing autographs and taking selfies with people every day? Yes. But when I get back to my house with that cat,
I knew you were going to bring up the cat.
it's just me and that cat. That's all that matters. But then he can't stop himself.
I've had the like button hit by Jud Apatow.
Okay.
And I went ahead and checked when he said, when it said Jud Apatow likes your tweet, and it has the little verified verified check mark right next to it. So that was pretty cool.
Drop.
So,
Yeah. He was waiting for Dan to be like, wait, Jud Apatow liked your tweet? Like, yep, he sure did. You want to smell the finger that typed that tweet? Interesting note. Adam, if you're talking, you're muted. I can't hear you.
He didn't say what the tweet said, did it? Did he?
It was about a bill going through Congress, trying to fund the government or something. That's all he
So
said.
it's a political thing.
It's a political thing. Of course.
Right. It wasn't a joke or
No.
a comedy or
No. It was a political thing. And by the way, the day that Jud Apatow liked Tom's tweet was the last day that Jud was ever funny. That we could actually go back in time and realize nothing good came out of Jud Apatow. He then went on to do stand-up again, that horrible Netflix special. That was the moment, unfortunately. More fame talk coming your way.
So I really don't think it's affected me at all. I don't think it's affected my personality. I mean, I've always been me. So it's, I guess, some people, if how I handle fame, or I guess you could call it social media fame, because I'm not famous in the traditional sense. I guess if how I handle it's different from everyone else, that's fine. I mean, I don't really think about that too often.
I bet he thinks about it a lot. If I'm guessing, the fact that the guy goes, well, what's it like having all these followers on social media? And he goes on and on about it, Jud Apatow, but it hasn't changed me. But I realize it's different than most people. I don't know how they handle it. They might not be able to handle it, but I think I can handle it. It's like, oh, you've thought about this a lot. When they asked you what your style was, you didn't have an answer. Like, oh, my style, I don't know. But ask him about how he handles his fame. He's just like, oh, well, I can tell you all about that.
They say people like J-Lo always have to have other people around because they're only famous when other people in the room.
Yes.
So Tom has managed to stay grounded because there's never anyone else in the room.
That's a good point.
Except his cat, who, gets a lot of ribbon.
Yeah, watch out. You're going to get roasted a lot by that famous owner you have. So then this is a great follow-up question to all this fame talk.
So because you've been in comedy for so long, and specifically in the DMV area, have you? I guess this isn't really a well thought out question.
None of my answers have been well thought out, so you're in perfect company.
Have you seen, have you been? You've gotten to see other people kind of come up as well and go on to different things, I imagine. But what has that experience been like?
He literally just asked him, what about all the people who have passed you by? What's that been like? After Tom's talking about how famous he is, he fell for that line of questioning. Couldn't wait to answer that. It's like, what about all these other celebrities out of Baltimore, all these other comedians who are going on to do bigger and better things? What's that like?
That was Dan's way of opening the door to the second question.
Whoops. And then he goes on to start dropping names of people I've never heard of. Stavros Halkias does not come up as Tom's talking about the other comedians out of Baltimore who've gone on to be done bigger and better things. Can't figure out why that might be. Let's change gears, guys. Does Tom do impressions?
I hope so.
Yes, he does.
Do you do him? I don't think I've seen you do any impressions.
I know the Busch impression isn't really that relevant now, but I think the only part of it I remember was, boy, I tell you what, I'm dumbfounded. They found me here dumb. It was a stupid joke play on words, but because, 10 years ago, 10, maybe 15 years ago, That would have gotten a standing ovation.
Right, yeah.
Not just your callous little hitter.
What do you think, Adam? Pretty good impression. Do you think that George W. Bush joined the podcast?
I'm not a purist, but I thought when you do an impression, you're supposed to change your voice.
Here's my impression of producer Chris. Hey, Carl. I'm going to produce the show today.
Spot on.
Boxes are moving. I
Thank
can't
you
even
very
tell.
much. Dumb. He went with the dumbfounded. He goes, by the way, that was a play on words. Yeah, no, we got it. Pretty good stuff there, Tommy.
And he's good for a good 5-10 seconds of silence and breathing before having to answer like a very simple question. This is very difficult for him.
Ask me if I do any impressions.
Carl, do you do any impressions?
No.
Really easy. to
Moving
explain,
on.
Really easy.
See?
No fear of brevity there.
See how easy that could possibly be. Okay. So they have a stinger now. Now we're going on to the next segment. And the next segment is about crafting jokes, and they want to work on crafting jokes together. And this stinger is interesting.
On that note, we'll move into the joke writing.
Bong hit transplant.
They worked bong hit transplant into this. I didn't do that. It was on the show. Like, is that always on the show? Are these guys huge Tom Myers fans? Maybe. I don't know. And then I start to wonder, does this guy have no respect for Tom Myers? And is he setting him up? And then I hear this joke that he wrote that he needs help with, and I go, nope, I don't think so. I think he probably admires Tom Myers.
It's really stupid. I fully own that. I am just trying to find the punchline. But the version is I'm helping my mom write an autobiography. It's very stressful. We just finished the chapter on dealing with my conception. And now I understand why I'm afraid of clowns. That doesn't work. And so I talked about it with her. And so
Have you done that before?
I did. It didn't work.
Really?
And then so what I said in conversation was, the original version of that joke that I tried was I'm helping my mom write an autobiography. The first chapter is just me showing her how to use Microsoft Word. And Audrey was like, that's funny. You should use that. And I was like, yeah, maybe I will try that again. And then I tried it again. I'm like, nope, still doesn't get a laugh. And so I'm just like, there's got to be a joke
Now,
here.
are you doing these jokes at open mics? Like, you're trying
Yeah, I've
them
tried them at various
mics?
open mics to try to in
And
front of different people.
Have they been?
You get nothing.
Yeah, Tom, he said that it's not working. I could have told you that. I haven't even been to these open mics. I could have told you that it's not working. Using Microsoft is a real head scratcher.
Yeah, but Tom was into it.
Tom liked both of those.
Yeah.
Tom's like, oh, he was laughing before even the punchline.
Can I use it?
Yeah, he's like, clowns. Oh, yeah, okay. That's pretty good. But Dan explains it's not working. I need help. Which is a weird thing to ask someone to be like, can you write this punchline for me? Like, that's the hardest part of writing a joke. It's like, well, I got to take your premise and write a punchline for you? That's crazy. You know what I mean? Guys, I'm a musician. Can you write a song for me?
Sure.
Just the hook. You just write the hook.
Yeah.
It makes it a number one hit. That'd be great.
But make it about like horses.
Right, yeah. Here are the parameters that you have to work with.
And
My
it should
mom,
end with a kind of like thing.
my mom,
Make sure that's there.
autobiography, King of G, and go. So Tom is going to punch it up. God bless him. He's up for the task.
So what do we do with this autobiography joke? There's got to be. I mean,
There has to be,
It doesn't need to be my mom. Like, it could be. I could be writing an autobiography helping anybody. But I love the idea of just like this. There's this weird thing. It's,
I'm helping my mom write an autobiography, and it's a very traumatic experience. It's like nothing like helping your mom write an autobiography to find out you were adopted.
okay, so you go in the adopted area.
Yep, man, we all thought of that, Tom. That's a little too obvious. So, not great.
It was satisfying, though, because if we were asked to do a Tom Myers version of that joke, that's exactly what we'd come up with.
Yeah.
Too wordy, burying the punchline, and, everything is cushioned by these unnecessary words.
But Dan comes back and he goes, well, I don't know about that.
And specifically, you're going that route. You said you're going that route, which is like, yeah, I thought of that and
Yeah.
didn't go that way. So.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. It's like, well, that's obviously the first thing you would think. I've heard in comedy, whatever the first punchline you come up with is the wrong one.
Right.
Like, think two or three or four more.
This ties back to exactly what we were talking about, because he gets so excited by this joke crafting concept. He doesn't really want to be an actor. He just wants to be in acting class and talk about acting and talk about the craft, but never actually give examples of it or, excel at it.
Right. So this is Dan's feedback for that.
The adopted thing, I feel like adopted is almost too easy, but like unless there was another piece of it there, you know what I mean? Like
If they're not laughing at anything else, fuck it. You might as well go for it. I mean,
yeah, that's true. I mean,
That explains a lot about
That
Tom.
explains a lot. He's like, yeah, I know it's not funny, but neither are your other things. Okay, well, we're still at square one then. Hey, you
Listen,
get to be
as a
on stage.
comedian, if you're going to judge how you're doing based on how much people are laughing, I don't think that's a good way to figure this out. I think you need to have a higher power.
Well, I appreciate that Dan says, okay, we can go that route, but what makes it funny? Like, that's the thing we're all thinking. It turns out I'm adopted. But then there has to be, like Pat Oates always said, okay, so now what does that turn into? Like, that's where the creativity comes in. Why is that a funny premise? And then what happens after that? And I think that's what Dan was saying. Like, okay, we can go with that, but what else you got? So now Tom's going to try again. Let's see what he gets.
and then or you could tie that in with I'm helping my mom write, Microsoft Word, or the fear of if they found out you're adopted, that really wouldn't tie into the clown thing, I guess. But yeah, I mean, there's plenty of stuff you can do with that.
Yeah. The list goes on. There's so many punchlines. I don't want to embarrass you with all the punchlines I can come up with. It's too many to count, honestly.
And they say sometimes people aren't necessarily the funniest writers, but they're funny to have around. They're big personalities. They inspire you. You want them in the writer's room.
Yeah.
Like, not only is he so deeply unfunny, but he's so boring when he talks and gets nowhere. It's really hard to listen to.
You wouldn't want to brainstorm with this guy.
Exactly.
I've read books about being in the writer's room on The Simpsons and stuff, and how they will toil over a joke until 2 a.m. They're like, no, that's not it. What about this? And everyone's throwing out ideas, and it gets funnier and funnier until someone's like, bingo, this is it. But they couldn't have done it on their own. They needed to bounce these ideas and get to that point. Tom is the joke vampire in the room, just sucking the funny out of everyone. You're like, ugh.
Yeah, he somehow sucks the fun out, but adds so many words. None of them fun.
He fills the time while sucking out the fun. It's incredible. So then they start talking about whether each other's parents have seen their comedy or not. And Dan tells this depressing story where he's like, yeah, my mom's never come out, but I gave her a DVD of my stand-up. And a week or so later, I asked if she had checked it out. And she said, yeah, see, the people were having fun. I know. It's the worst response you could get. So then Tom talks about his parents' take on this.
Some of the stuff most of the stuff, obviously, they're proud of what I'm doing. It's just some of the stuff, when they hear the material, they don't like it. I will say this much. They have stopped asking me why I can't be more like Bill Cosby.
oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. That's the right response to a Tom Myers joke. Oh, all right. Yeah, there you go. I got you. Now, the most embarrassing part of that is that he recognized that's from Tom's act. And the most hack thing you could do when being on a podcast is set yourself up for your own jokes and also have them fail.
Silver lining,
Have you used that line on stage?
I have.
Oh, you have? Okay, because I'm pretty sure I've heard you say that.
I think it's on the CD.
Okay.
If it's not, it'll go on the next one.
Yeah.
Again, it'll be on 2 of them.
Is he flexing over that?
That is wild, right? It's just like, oh, yeah, of course it's on the CD. Yeah, but it didn't get a laugh in here, so it seems like that's not working.
No, he's like, I'm coming on your show and I'm doing my greatest hits.
Yes.
This is gold.
He had the
and you're
attitude of
welcome.
like a musician who, did we record that one? Yeah, we have that one. It's on one of the earlier records. Yeah, we recorded that. We don't just do it live. No, this is not Piano Man.
So that is Tom Myers on Dan Has Jokes. Did not disappoint.
Not at all.
I actually appreciated that. I like Tom explaining his craft. It's a nice departure from him trying to be funny with political jokes, although I enjoy both. I enjoy both versions of Tom. but I enjoyed this one quite a bit. What did you learn from this, Adam?
I learned that he doesn't know who he is.
Yes.
Because we actually share a similar problem. You know, I find myself telling him the same thing I tell myself, which is like, land the plane, buddy. Come on, land the plane. I can get too wordy. I can take a minute. He will take something funny and either ruin it by burying it with too many words, or he has this delivery like you expect it to be such brilliant, clever wordplay, like Stephen Wright. That's his delivery, like, oh shit, this last thing is gonna take a turn and it's gonna be brilliant. And then that doesn't happen. So you feel so disappointed, and the joke is so hacky and on the nose, and the kind of joke you're used to hearing from a big personality that's really pushing and trying to sell this thing. So he goes back and forth between both and fails at all of them.
He said something on the show that stuck out to me, where he said one of his comedian friends told him, what I do is I try to end the sentence as weird as possible.
Yeah, not a good way to stick the landing.
And I went, okay, understandable. And when you hear Tom on some of the jokes that he writes for his political show, that's his mentality. He'll set up this whole thing with, and then the bill was passed by the Senate, but it was stalled by and he goes through this whole thing, and then it'll turn into like a blowjob joke at the end. You're like, okay, none of that's connected, but he's just thinking like, isn't that, you would have thought to end that with that? Like, right, it's true, but it also doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And it's not funny in any single way.
It smacks of someone that read a comedy book and it said, you know, when in doubt, end with misdirection or end with a
Right,
false
yes.
lead. So he put that in there. You know, in Bob Dylan's autobiography, he talks about his singing voice, and he says, my singing voice is like 2, 3, I do 2. He starts listing numbers. And it's his way of being like, fuck you. I'm not explaining it to you. I don't know how to explain it. So I'll pretend there's like a science or math behind it when there's really not. Tom is crunching these numbers. He's doing the
really
math,
trying,
and trying to figure it out and using it to defend it. Like, well, that's what that was. It said it. So, you know, that's comedy because it said it was.
He's like, I know I'm talented. I just can't explain it. I just can't explain to you why I'm so talented. Yeah.
And I don't need this false sense of validation from the audience.
Right. Yeah. If I get a laugh out of the audience, I mean, I guess that's all right, but I know I'm funny.
He wants to be Bill Maher.
He does. The other person he listed as his more modern influence is Lewis Black.
Okay.
Which is interesting because Lewis Black has such a presence to him.
Yeah.
And so I was like, Lewis Black, really? And then Tom goes, just because I agree with him politically. It's like, oh, okay. Well, there you go. That's all
So
it takes.
you and Jud and Lewis Black are all.
You're right. That's all it takes for Tom to be like, that's an influence for me. Charlie Chaplin. What a fucking asshole. What a pretentious, douchey thing to say. Let's play a new game.
It's time for everyone's favorite new game show. 2 Minutes with Tom. The concept is easy. The game, not so much. What did Tom say next? So, Carl, maybe I will set up a little bit. What
Okay.
I've attempted to do is write alternate punchlines for Tom's monologues.
Wait.
You have to guess. I mean, write alternate endings that are supposed to be punchlines.
But
Tom's
so,
monologues.
so wait, you wrote different we have to guess what you wrote?
No, we have to guess the one that Tom actually said.
Oh, okay. So you're going to tell us what you wrote, and then we got to figure out what he said.
Yeah, either you're going to get 3 options, and you're going to
Gotcha.
pick the one that's actually Tom.
Okay.
Trump's campaign hosted a rally at Madison Square Garden in New York City over the weekend. Some people online compared it to the American Bund Nazi rally at Madison Square Garden 80 plus years ago.
What did Tom say next? Here are your choices. Number 1, that's an exact quote from Donald Trump's Truth Social account recently. B, while others online didn't think it was a good idea. Next, at least that was the description of the event when you ordered the tickets online from their website. 2 Minutes with Tom.
All right. I'm going to go with B. What do you think, Adam?
Oh, man. That's a tough one. I also think B, but I'll go with next to be competitive. It's the wordiest.
Okay. What do you think, Annie?
I think it's probably letter 1. He likes Donald Trump.
All right.
Doesn't.
He doesn't like Donald Trump. Very good. Producer Chris?
I also went with letter 1.
All right. I got to say, only 3 choices is a lot easier game than last week when we had 8 different people to choose who said it.
And
I was doing
faster.
this afternoon, and it's hard to write in Tom's voice.
Thank you. No, this is great.
I'll bet.
Some people online compared it to the American Bund Nazi rally at Madison Square Garden 80 plus years ago, while others online didn't think it was a good idea.
All right. Adam, you should have gone with your gut there.
I'm just trying to make the show interesting.
I understand. That's not your job. That's my job.
You're right. I'm sorry.
But I'm failing miserably, so thank you.
Who are